I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. It is a new week. We're back after the 3-day long holiday, the Memorial Day, honoring those who've made the ultimate sacrifice for our beautiful country. And it looks like we are alive and well, which is tremendous news. We do have some business to attend to this week. It is a short week, but it's not done yet. Let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun, deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about being outsmarted. We've got a lot of that going on. We've got this debt crisis conundrum that we've been following here a little bit. We have Jerome Powell with the money printer going brrr, because that's what's going to be happening very soon. We're going to talk about this today because Republicans are furious over what has landed at their feet. Some Republicans, not all of them. Mitt Romney seems to like it. Marjorie Taylor Greene seems like she's on the fence about it. We're not sure. Nancy Mace came out and actually absolutely shredded this entire bill to bits. We're going to go through that. And based Mike Lee, the senator from Utah, he's out talking about why this is so meaningless, essentially. He points to Section 265 and says that if the Biden administration really wants to do anything, they can. They just wave it with a magic wand, and suddenly they can invalidate large portions of this deal that might limit them otherwise. So we'll go through all of that. We've also got some clips from Republicans like Byron Donalds. He's very upset about this, along with Representative Dan Bishop. The Republicans were out talking about what a catastrophe this is. We've got a clip from Chip Roy, and there is another conversation that's happening in tandem about whether Kevin McCarthy is going to be sticking around as the Speaker of the House. There was a motion or talk about a motion to vacate the chair. Big deal. We'll see. We heard from him yesterday. He said he wasn't too worried about it. We also have a clip from Vivek, who says that this is also a bad deal, and we'll hear what he has to say. And I think the Republicans have really bungled this. Don't know if it's going to pass or what's going to happen, but I was paying attention to the student loan provision here, and it sounds like the Republicans are going to take ownership of this student loan debacle. And so we'll talk a little bit about that because they are accelerating the repayments. Something that was going to be on the Democrats' watch is now going to be on the Republican watch. So we'll go through that because Republicans are just dum-dums. Now, that'll all be in the first segment. Then in our second segment, interesting clips over from MSNBC. They are basically praying for charges against Donald Trump, saying inshallah about that. So we'll go through that. God willing, Trump gets charged, according to them and some of their contributors. Interesting article from the Rolling Stone. They're saying that Trump's team is out and demanding names. They want to know who is specifically involved with this investigation from the FBI going against Donald Trump. We have Trump lawyer now, Evan Corcoran, saying that Donald Trump may have waved him out of his office so that he couldn't confirm the classified documents were there or not, which might incriminate Trump, leading to his intentionality. Might be Evan Corcoran trying to cover his butt. We'll go through that. News story that there may be a recording of Donald Trump and another key witness. This is out of the New York City prosecution, so we'll go through that. And then there was a question from Peter Doocy over to Joe Biden asking him about whether he would consider pardoning Donald Trump, which is a funny conversation. Now, right as the show was breaking, my friends, we learn that although the FBI had a pretty serious deadline today by which they were required to give over a document to Congress, they have decided that they are not going to be complying with any of that. So Comer just released a statement saying they are going to be moving forward with contempt charges against the FBI, against the FBI Director Wray, contempt of Congress proceedings, initiating a whole new kerfuffle with the FBI, something that is well-deserved and overdue. So we'll go through all of that today, and you can see we've got 3 different segments out there. And so if you want to be a part of the program, my friends, the best place you can do that is head on over to our amazing community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do member-only streams. We have Saturday member-only shows, and we'd love to have you. Amazing community chatting away. Uncle Shane, John Allen, we've got Adesia. I saw Zach Nichols looks like he's on some jet skis over there in the Gulf. Shout out to Zach. John Allen's in the house. Good to see everybody chatting away. And if you're a member on YouTube, also don't forget to grab the private Telegram group, which is a members only group on Telegram. If you join as a member on YouTube, you can get access to the members only chat. Just navigate over to the community tab and grab the link. And before we get into the meat and potatoes on the day, we got to make sure we have our greens, and we'd all like to lose some of those extra leftover pandemic pounds, wouldn't we? But how sick are you of all the ads for the weight loss pills and the fad diets? You know, we've all been there, we've all done that, and they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan. And who's got time to prepare this fruit all day, every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables that you won't find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and you'll feel healthier fast. But the greater proof comes at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com, enter in 15% with code Robert when you check out. I know a lot of barbecues, a lot of, hamburgers and steaks and a lot of extra potatoes and French fries over the long weekend. Time to get back on track with fieldofgreens.com. And don't forget to use code Robert at checkout. So let's get into it. On the day, my friends, lots of business to attend to, starting with this catastrophe of a deal. The debt catastrophe is getting ridiculed by people like Congresswoman Nancy Mace and others in the Republican Party. Joe Biden was seen here kind of smirking away, thinking that he got the biggest deal of his life, and it may be true. The Republicans may have caved. We'll see what happens ultimately in the end. Some Republicans are very almost gleeful about this. Mitt Romney came out as this deal lands on our lap, and he said, this deal is good for the country in that it prevents a default and subsequent financial meltdown. All right. So I guess we're just going to kick that can down the road. We'll save the meltdown for another era. While also limiting spending, we'll come back and revisit that. In addition, House leadership successfully fought for conservative priorities like work requirements for TAMF and SNAP and reducing permitting review timelines. Romney says, while I would have preferred to see an agreement that also addressed entitlements, this represents a good faith bipartisan compromise, and I'm hopeful that the House and Senate will pass it into law in the coming days. That's one take in the Senate. House Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had a different take. She said the finalized agreement will also have access that is limiting funds that go to all of these different countries. Sounds like she's kind of positive about it. It's going to claw back $400 million from the CDC, and it's going to chop $1.5 billion from some different distribution and monitoring program. Marjorie's take on that one. Now, there was somebody else who's a congresswoman who had a little bit of a more oppositional stand. This is what Nancy Mace wrote. Nancy Mace is a congresswoman serving South Carolina. And here is what she said. Washington is broken. Republicans got outsmarted by a president who can't find his pants. I'm voting no on the debt ceiling debacle because playing the DC game isn't worth selling out our kids and grandkids. Let's dive into this bill, says Nancy. This, quote, deal normalizes record high spending started during the pandemic. So you know all of those inflated charts that we've looked at? They're not just going to go back down. They're going to stay that way. It sets these historically high spending levels as the baseline for all future spending. The bill then grows the government even more each year at about 1%. After factoring in a small cut to discretionary spending over the next 2 years, we are still talking about $6 trillion more or less in spending because of large increases in spending elsewhere. In other words, it's a wash spending-wise. She says government grew massively over the past 3 years. This growth was supposed to be emergency funding only during COVID. During this time, the government grew 40% or by $2 trillion from 2019 to 2023. We went from spending just over $4 trillion to spending over $6 trillion. This deal keeps that record high spending intact and makes it the baseline for all spending moving forward. Wild, she says. This bill doesn't actually set a debt limit at all. Rather, it suspends the debt limit entirely until January 2nd, 2025, after the 24 election, when debt could be a problem for the Democrats. To say, look at what you've done, own it. They don't even have to talk about it. And there is now no actual amount capping the debt ceiling at all. Some say there will be a $2 trillion deficit in 6 years, but that CBO guesstimate relies on spending caps that do not exist and are not binding in any way in this deal. And only in DC is a bill clawing back small amounts of unspent COVID funds considered an actual cut. They tell us this bill cuts $41 billion in its first year, about the same amount as the unspent COVID funds. Pretty convenient. Also, not a cut. And on that note, do we really think the states will send back unspent COVID funds? Or will they find a way to use the money so they don't have to send it back? Pay as you go has some fine print under Section 265 everyone should read, she says. The OMB director has sole waiver authority to spend if it's, quote, necessary for program delivery. All right. If it's necessary, they can spend it. So that one line wipes out pay-go. These words on paper are totally meaningless if you read the fine print, she says. A $1.4 billion cut to the IRS doesn't equal $80 billion in cuts to the IRS. It's not true. Nor does it mean that we're gutting the IRS or its 87,000 new hires. She says allegedly there will be $10 billion cut off the top for 2024 during the appropriations process, but it's also not even in the bill. That money can be cut anywhere the IRS decides. She says work requirements for SNAP move to age 50 to 54 and student loan forgiveness executive order repeal never happened. Not sure why anyone even bothered here. Says Manchin got a nice little carve out for his pipelines, not even germane to the bill. Big fat piece of pork in there for him. This is just your run-of-the-mill government picking winners and losers in the market, and typical business as usual in Washington. Says a continuing resolution at 99% in Section 102 only applies to discretionary and provides ample time for an omnibus should everything else fail. Meaningless. While we like the intent here, it's like the penny plan for discretionary, but once again, because of how it's written, it's meaningless. This fully funds every spending request by the administration, pretty much. And just a friendly reminder, she says, debt ceilings are about future outlays, about future spending, and about how it will be financed. It's not about past spending or past obligations from one administration to another. Let that sink in. She says 63% of Americans want Congress to cut spending as part of the debt ceiling deal, and this bill doesn't do that. Therefore, unacceptable. She says Washington is, was, and always will be lousy at responsibly spending your tax dollars. That won't change unless we demand change. And so Nancy Mace is a hard no on that. And what was interesting about this is Senator Mike Lee also dug into this. He says, yeah, the White House is even confirming this is meaningless. Says, well, that didn't take long for the Biden administration to confirm what I've been saying. Section 265 of the McCarthy debt limit deal renders, quote, meaningless the bill's much touted regulatory reforms. Here's what it says. The director may waive the requirements if the director concludes that the waiver is necessary for essential services. Wow. Or that it's necessary for effective program delivery. In other words, whatever they want. Philip is here. Says, we asked Shalonda. Shalonda is the Office of Management and Budget. She works for the Biden White House. You see her here. We asked her, what about the waiver? What do you guys think about the waiver? She says, well, if that waiver is deemed necessary to make sure President Biden's agenda is carried forward, well, we're going to use that authority, is what she said. If we deem it necessary to make sure Biden's agenda is carried forward, we're going to use that authority. Wow. So in other words, they can do whatever the hell they want, right? Is exactly what Mike Lee says. The source of the quote is Shalonda Young. She has now confirmed that she would use her authority exactly as I predicted, to gut the bill. Exactly. So nice job to old Kev over there and his team of negotiators who came out in their T-shirts and their messy hair. We worked really hard. Yeah. What did you do in there? Sounds like you gave them literally everything that they wanted. So not much. Now, Republicans are furious about this deal. Not all of them. Some of them, like Mitt Romney, are happy, saying this avoids a future catastrophe. I've been kicking the can down the road my whole life, my whole career, and I'll continue to do it. Everybody else can deal with the problem. Byron Donalds, Dan Bishop, and others are not wanting to go that route because they have some fiscal responsibility in their bones. And they came out and delivered a press briefing explaining what is so catastrophic about this bill.
So first things first, to the American people.
That's right.
Washington is doing it again.
Yes, we know.
While you were celebrating Memorial Day, all of our men and women who gave their lives for this great nation, and you were spending time with your family and your friends.
We're going to pause and do a quick volume boost on this one. We can see it's a little bit quiet. Let's amplify this puppy here.
This town was cutting another crap deal
that's
going to put you more in debt with no real changes whatsoever. So the American people need to...
Let's hear that again, because now that we got the volume appropriate, let's hear about this crap deal.
So first things first, to the American people, Washington is doing it again. While you were celebrating Memorial Day, all of our men and women who gave their lives for this great nation, and you were spending time with your family and your friends, this town was cutting another crap deal that's going to put you more in debt with no real changes whatsoever. So the American people need to understand full and well, do not listen to the talking points. Do not listen to the cool phrases that are being thrown out in commercials on CNN or Fox or MSNBC, because Washington is lying again.
Yes.
This bill has no cap in raising the debt, just a date in the future. We have no idea what that number is going to look like. Some people are saying $4 trillion. Some people are saying $3.5 trillion.
Whatever they want.
This bill in year one might cut $12 billion if you just want to be generous. So who here thinks it's cool to cut $12 billion in exchange for $4 trillion? I don't think that's cool at all. This bill actually keeps the Biden baseline intact for the federal agencies. The Republicans in Congress have been saying for months that we need to get back to pre-COVID spending levels.
Because it's over.
This bill canonizes post-COVID spending levels brought to us by Joe Biden and the Democrats.
Absolutely.
This bill keeps all of Joe Biden's policy, all of Joe Biden's spending intact. This bill does nothing for the Green New Deal subsidies that are going to cripple our electric grid. So when Americans are trying to figure out that they went and bought this electric car that they were subsidized to buy, but when they plug it in, there's not enough electricity on the grid, that is because Washington subsidized all these Green New Deal projects and nobody stood up to it except for people standing behind me right now. To my Republican colleagues, do not vote for this bill.
That's right.
I'm telling you right now, your voters back home are going to look at you and say, why did you vote for a bill that keeps all of Joe Biden's policy in place and all you did was raise the debt ceiling? They're going to tell you, Why did you not stand up and demand that they go back to the table and renegotiate this deal? These negotiations happened.
We would be very upset if they just did what the Democrats do, because they might as well be Democrats. If there's not a bit of daylight between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, what the heck do we need all the Republicans for? Maybe it's time that they get primaried and thrown on their butts. They told us that we were going to get back to some normalcy, that things would return to normal, which means the spending goes along with that. The spending was supposed to be temporary because the country was going through a once in a generation, once in a century pandemic. And now that that's over, officially the US government has started to wind a lot of it down and then actually continue to latch onto it for other things like in the Supreme Court. But the spending levels that were required to prop up businesses through PPP and all of these things, that is over now. The spending doesn't need to continue at the same level, but Congress and our bureaucrats in charge, they never let a crisis go to waste. And once they get a new baseline, they try to hold on to it forever with both hands, because they know that that is their budget. And the more money they can dump back into their districts and back into their programs and back into their donors' pockets, the more they can be ensconced in power. This is another clip from Representative Bishop, who is explaining more about this horrific deal.
And I want to make sure I'm pithy here, because you guys don't just have to listen to, because these guys have covered it pretty well. But it's not just that every Republican should vote against this. It's a little bit more than that. This is a career-defining vote for every Republican.
Important one.
All of you guys know that thus far in this Congress, the dynamic force in Washington has been the unified House majority. The fact that we resolved in January on concrete details how we were going to go forward together. And it has been impactful over the first several months of Congress. Imagine the decision of Kevin McCarthy and his negotiators to forfeit that. Imagine that. Why would you give that up? Can you imagine doing it in the middle of a negotiating process without at least putting us all in a room to hash out, or representatives from our several groups among the Republican conference who've gotten together before?
Maybe they were playing like Go Fish or something.
Can you calculate the cost of surrendering that advantage? But maybe worse. You know, in Washington, I thought the least present quality was courage. But I'm afraid truth tops that. This bill, as others have given you detail on, is chock full of cosmetic things, artificial things, things that actually have been outright lied about, misstated, like the change to IRS funding. In every supposed get for the Republicans, they are chock full of cosmetics.
Crazy. So the Republicans are
hard
lying
and
to their own
cold
base.
reality. And again, there's not a member here who can tell you exactly what the increase in the debt will be. We just know the timing that it has been moved out. People said, actually, Kevin McCarthy said the Democrats didn't get anything in this bill. Who do you think wanted the maximum length extension of the debt ceiling and to make it undefined so nobody can pin it down? It may be $6 trillion. I always think it's useful to say, do you know what a trillion is? Do the American people are they capable of evaluating? You know what a trillion is? Somebody told me, I think it's about right, is a trillion is $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States. So at 31.4 trillion, you're talking about every one of us walking around with a $250,000 extra mortgage.
Woo!
4 trillion more will take
Every
that
one
up
of us.
$32,000 over the course of 2 years. And what does the device of 2 years do? It removes the issue from the national conversation during the presidential election to come. How could you more successfully kneecap any Republican president than to take that issue out of his or her hands?
So dumb. Yeah, just in terms of sheer politics, it's just a dumb move, because they're not going to have to talk about it. It's not going to be an issue until after the next election, after we vote again. If you're the Republicans, if the Democrats had their way and the Republicans were in charge and everything was reversed, the Democrats would want to set it right before the election so that they could say, well, you know, you're spending like a lunatic and you're spending like a sailor and, you know, or whatever the phrases are. And you just go and you hit them on that. But the Republicans are not doing that. And I want to put a pin in this point because I want to come back on that for the same thing with student loans. Okay. The Democrats are going to have a big albatross hanging around their necks very soon, or they were going to, because the student loans are going to be turned back on for tens of millions of students who haven't been paying their loans for years. And it's going to be a big fat bill that they're going to be hit with, and they are not going to be prepared for it. And so it's going to be a catastrophe. And that's why they kept kicking the can down the road. Oh, we'll extend it again. Oh, we'll extend it again. Oh, we'll extend it again. But now the Republicans are going to accelerate it by like a month or something so that the Democrats can say, see, they did it. They accelerated it. We were going to wait longer, but they accelerated it. So again, it's like 0 for 2. Who's in charge? Did McCarthy's people even show up? Were they drunk in there? Did they tap into Pelosi's alcohol from when she was speaker? What's going on?
That's what's being done. So now let me tell you what has to happen from this point forward. Every one of the people standing here are those people who had the courage and were prepared to be the truthful ones to stand up in January and contest the speaker election in order to get that agreement that unified the Republicans, that allowed the Republicans to pass a bill with 218 votes when they told us we could never do it. These people did that. There are other men and women of courage and honesty in the Republican conference. Some of them have come out in the last hours. Corey Mills, Nancy Mace, Mike Waltz I just saw, Wesley Hunt. Many more need to emerge. If there is any path to salvaging what we began as a unified conference, if there is any path to that, this bill, if it passes, must pass with less than half of the Republican conference. That is the challenge. And it is no longer, look, we're prepared to stand up and take the slings and the arrows. We're prepared to tell you the truth. We're prepared to act in courage and honesty to the American people. It falls to my other colleagues who have not joined us before. This is the moment now. A colleague's words ring in my ears from a conversation last night. Only in Washington would anybody spend any time quibbling over the $12 billion cut, or is it maybe $20 billion, or is it fake entirely because you're holding $22 billion of COVID money and new funds at Commerce Department to use to repurpose for other spending, all that crap. What the American people all get. Now look, there's some people who are, I understand they're on the left, they think debt and spending is the way to go forever. Most Americans, 60% of the right, is an AP poll. 60% said they wanted cuts to spending in conjunction with changing the debt ceiling. Because they all know it is on a cataclysmic, unsustainable path.
They can see it in their bank accounts. We can see it at the grocery store.
What they know is, look, they didn't want our bill, right? The $1.5 trillion increase, let's be honest about it. They go, why would you do that? Because that bill had an articulable path that we embarked on. It would take many phases, by the way, but we could eventually turn this place and get back to a politics of sanity.
It is weird to me how the Democrats just don't even think about it, I guess. I think they just think it's endless money. I honestly don't know what the rationale is. I think that if you go deep with it, they talk about basically Keynesian economics. If the government spends $1, it turns it into $3. It's kind of like this magical unicorn that you feed it some food and it craps out a bunch of dollars. I don't know how it works exactly, but they were thinking that it works. And as long as you have an economy where it's, kind of free money and certain levels of interest, you can just print. And as long as everything's growing, everybody keeps growing. But that can't keep going forever and ever and ever. Theoretically, there's a moment when it flips, and when the dollar is no longer sound currency because it has been inflated into oblivion, is essentially meaningless, and deflation can't keep pace with inflation through the more provisions of goods and services to keep up with the dollars. It's a big mess. But the Democrats, I still don't know what their cap is, because even in this bill from McCarthy, there is no cap. It's basically you have no limit on your credit card, go hog wild. And we know that if the COVID era spending, which is responsible for this current level of inflation that we all see, we're all suffering from, every, lunch meals, $25 or whatever. It's just something that is going to continue, which is why this fiscal sanity matters. But there is no reasonable alternative other than we're just going to keep going. And McCarthy apparently is okay with that.
Not this. The only thing we get here is tokenism, a token, artificial, fake, nothing benefits. And you don't even need to talk that long as I have to Americans for them to understand $4 or $6 trillion in debt growth. That is insane. So, to my colleagues in the Republican conference, you have a few hours to make up your mind. You are the key to our being able to reacquire the unity. Now, it's going to take some steps, by the way, because the leadership decision to forfeit that is going to have to be dealt with.
We're going to see the leadership decision. And as we heard, if they're going to be digging their feet in, is Kevin McCarthy going to need some Democrat votes to help him get over the finish line? And will he break with the Republicans and make that happen? Chip Roy also had something to say about it.
My colleagues, be very clear. Not one Republican should vote for this deal. It is a bad deal. No one sent us here to borrow an additional $4 trillion to get absolutely nothing in return. But at best, if I'm being really generous, a spending freeze for a couple of years. That's it. That's about what you...
Maybe, if they are okay with that, or unless Shalonda comes out and says, that's interfering with Joe Biden's administration. We need progress and we need to spend. Then she can just make that decision and they go forward.
Get. And frankly, you're going to make things worse, and my Democratic colleagues know it. That's why they're supporting it. That's why they're going around gleeful. Look, there's a reason our Democrat colleagues support this. There's a reason that Mitt Romney supports this.
Where am I? Ice cream.
There's a reason that Bill Kristol supports this. It's all the same stuff. There's a reason that our conservative allies are opposing it roundly. The Club for Growth, scoring against it. The Heritage Foundation, scoring against it. Freedom Works, scoring against it. Ron DeSantis, publicly opposed. President Trump said he thought we should default rather than pursue this kind of lunacy. At the end of the day, the only person that would default in this town is Joe Biden, unless Republicans default on the American dream by voting for this bad bill.
Right on.
That is why this group will oppose it. We will continue to fight it today, tomorrow, and no matter what happens, there's going to be a reckoning about what just occurred unless we stop this bill by tomorrow. I yield.
Yeah, there are going to be consequences. I mean, they just keep kicking the can down the road. We're all kind of tired of it because we can see actual consequences of it right now. Maybe they don't have to deal with it because they're used to being fed by the government bureaucratic teat. The rest of us, though, have to live in reality land where the government doesn't pay for all of our stuff. So the question becomes, if the Republicans split on this and McCarthy ends up siding with the Democrats, if he drags some Democrats over to his side in order to pass this thing, and they're excited about voting for it, will there be a motion to vacate the chair?
Thank you, Harry. Jackson Richmond, Epoch Times. Were the bill to go forward, would you file a motion to vacate the chair?
Look, we are focused. I'll let each member speak for themselves. But for me, I am focused on defeating this bill. What happens post that and the agreements that we have, we will decide once we've determined the disposition of this bill and its finality. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so they'll decide about what to do, but not a hard no on that. Not like, no, we have stand unified behind our speaker. It's kind of like, we're going to defeat this bill, and then we're going to take care of business if need be. So we have another one from Vivek. He's running for president, and he opined about this and this deal.
I think that the steps are too incrementally forward.
Let's fix this audio now because I think we're back up to normal levels.
We still have, I think that the steps are too incrementally forward. We still have a spending crisis in this country. The point of these negotiations should be to actually address the fiscal crisis, not to window dress around it. You want to take the funding for the IRS, moving it from 80 billion to 70 billion while still leaving the hit squad intact. That doesn't really change anything. Work requirements for Medicaid recipients, the Inflation Reductions Act's pork fest for clean energy tax credits. None of that's really changed. And so, Maria, I think there was an opportunity to go much further. I think we have to think on the timescales of history rather than the timescales of two-year election cycles. I think Republicans have the power to do it. And if I were in Congress, that's why I know it's a difficult thing to say, but I would hold the line, vote against it, and actually stick to fixing the real problems we have rather than applying lipstick.
Yeah, exactly right. We actually have real problems. These things are not just jokey, senior prom parties for Congress to get together and play patty cake with each other. Oh, hey, good to see you guys, or whatever they do there. It's just a big, strange thing that happens. It's like this ritual where they come and they talk about the debt ceiling every so often. And typically the Republicans talk a big game. They scream and shout about what a conundrum this is, and then it gets passed anyways. So another area where there were some major problems with this, where the Republicans are just embarrassing themselves, are when it comes to student loans. Now, there are large numbers of people who are going to have to start repaying their loans. They've been on pause for years, ever since COVID hit, and the pause is nixed in the debt limit agreement. Okay, so let's go through this for a quick second. The deal reached by Joe and Kev to raise the debt limit would force the administration to resume collecting federal loan payments and interest for millions of Americans at the end of the summer. The agreement, the text of which was unveiled Sunday after weeks of negotiations, would terminate the ongoing pause on monthly payments after August 30th. But the deal would not affect the other student debt cancellation plan, the one that is unconstitutional, in my opinion, that's working its way up to the Supreme Court, or at the Supreme Court. Cementing the plan to restart payments into law curtails the options for responding when the Supreme Court comes back and probably blocks debt cancellation. Biden administration has several times announced an end to the payment pause, only to reverse course, right? They keep doing this. They know this is going to be a big problem. Now, you guys are going to have to pay again at the end of July. All right, July comes. They're like, holy crap. How many students are there? Okay, like 30 million? Oh, man. That's a lot. So that's going to be a big new bill. And every time the deadline comes, they just kick it back. Issue another extension of the policy. But that path would be off the table under the debt ceiling deal, right? So that's one thing that would be in there. The bill would prohibit the Secretary of Education from extending it even more. It does not specify, which, again, it's like the Republicans are going to take the blame for this. It does not, regardless of how you think, I think students should pay their bills, and I think that the loan system is entirely broken, and there's a lot of issues with how our government does all of this, and we should have never shut the country down and never paused all this stuff in the first place. But the longer you pause it, the more people rely on it. And what is the alternative to this? They could just continue to extend this out indefinitely and look like idiots, and their credibility would be shattered. But the Republicans right in it to do something about it, like they're going to declare a victory on that, but they're going to just really honestly, we'll continue on. We're going to see what the Secretary of Education is already doing. It's like they think these steps out already, and the Republicans have no idea. It does not specify how or when they must resume collecting payments, shielding the administration's plans to offer borrowers grace periods or extra flexibility. They see the deal as codifying into law what they had already been planning to do. They said President Biden protected its plan for student debt relief entirely. We announced back in November that it would end this summer, and this agreement doesn't make any changes to that. Now here, okay, so the Secretary of Education is already going hog wild on this. Now, I'm sure there are big parts of the GOP constituency that would declare that a major victory. Good. They're going to start paying their loans again. And so that, maybe that's going to bring them back into the GOP fold, but I'm pretty sure those people were probably already in the GOP fold. So they're losing an opportunity for the Democrats to smack their own constituency and to create a big batch of disenfranchised Democrat young voters. They're losing that opportunity because the Republicans are now going to take the ownership of this. McCarthy hailed the elimination of the student loan pause as a victory. Great. It's a Republican victory. So the Democrats can say, oh, we didn't take your loans away from you. The Republicans did. Rather than letting the Democrats take it away from their constituents. Brilliant. Genius. Something they were going to do already. Anyways, they told us in November that they were going to redo the student loans again. And so the GOP shoots another one in their own goal. They're just, oh, our goal's over here, so let's just shoot it right behind us, right in the goal. Neat. In an interview with Fox News, McCarthy noted that the pause cost the government $5 billion each month. He touted the legislation to make sure borrowers would be required to repay their debt, even if the debt cancellation gets struck down. So anyways, the Republicans were already winning on this issue, okay? They were already winning. They didn't need to do anything. And now they have snatched defeat from the claws of victory. The Biden administration was already going to restart the loans. So they're just going to start them earlier and take full responsibility for it. Neat. And what is that going to do? Bring them constituents who are already in their camp? I mean, they are some of the dumbest political actors you've ever seen. And to just buttress this, watch exactly what is happening on Twitter. Kevin McCarthy is posting this. The Biden administration can no longer use COVID as an excuse to pause student loan repayments. Okay, great. First of all, they said that they were going to restart them anyways in a month or two. And if they keep denying it, they're going to keep spending money that they don't have. If you would have held tight to the debt ceiling, okay, guess what? You hold tight to the debt ceiling, they've got to make some other concessions, and we've got to get the fiscal house in order. We have concerns about the fiscal house. That's why we're concerned about students not paying their loans back, because it's one line item in a massive budget that is way overly exposed. It's all part of a much bigger picture. So dumb Kevin McCarthy comes out and says that, hey, we made a tiny adjustment on this one thing that was already going to happen according to the Biden administration. They said, like, this time we're serious. Like, you really are going to have to start repaying. And they would have owned that. We're going to make a tiny adjustment. We're just going to make sure it actually happens. And that's going to bring us, he's using this, right? The point of this tweet is to presume that there is now going to be fiscal responsibility, right? That's what this means. They can't continue to let students not pay, which is fiscal irresponsibility. We're going to be fiscally responsible. We're going to nestle this line item in and use it to justify this as being fiscally responsible, when in reality, the entire pie is entirely fiscally irresponsible. Says this responsible debt limit agreement is not only a first step in paying down America's debt, even though it spends more, it also requires borrowers to be responsible for paying off their student loans once again. That's great. You know what's great? Responsibility. Yeah, we like fiscal responsibility here. Definitely. How about you idiots in Congress exercise some? You're borrowing trillions without any limit. The student loan people at least know what their student loans are and what they have to repay. Congress doesn't even put a limit on there. So these are just so full of inconsistencies, and it's just as fallacious of an argument as you possibly could make, because it is totally illegitimate. So not only is Kev coming out and taking ownership for this issue that the Democrats were going to fall on their face on, Miguel Cordona, the Secretary of Education, is picking up the Republican fumble and running with it. Posted this immediately. I applaud POTUS. This is the Secretary of Education, who really doesn't want to restart these loans. If he could, with the stroke of a pen, get rid of them, he would. He basically did that with this student loan relief payment thing. He said that you can waive a big portion of this. Where do I get my authority? COVID and this pandemic emergency. And he wrote in to this very limited provision that I think is going to be thrown out by the Supreme Court. But the point is, they're already going to start trying to process these things, and they're going to blame it on the Supreme Court, and they're going to use it as a justification to continue to delegitimize them. This is just another attempt. I applaud POTUS, he writes, for averting a crisis with this deal and protecting our student debt relief plan in full. Okay, we are still on the side of the students and our voters. The Republicans' original plan would have made cuts to about 100,000 teachers, which is sort of a non sequitur. We still have work to do, but those draconian cuts will not happen. Now, despite Republicans' efforts to end targeted student debt relief and move up our planned end to payment pause, they're doing it now. We were going to let you continue to be paused, but they're going to move it up. We will ensure a smooth return to repayment process. This deal protects our ability to pause student loan payments should that be necessary in future emergencies. So it sounds like what he's saying is that what Kev just said is not true. The deal also protects our ability to also pause student loan payments should that be necessary in future emergencies. So it sounds like it's the opposite of what Kev just told us. I thank President Biden and his team for looking out for the 40 million hardworking Americans who will benefit for student debt relief. They know. They want all 40 million of those people to know when that bill comes in their door again, when they get that email, when they say, hey, your repayments are going to start, they want them to know the Republicans did it, and the moron Republicans said we're happy to do that. 40 million hardworking Americans are going to say, wow, Kev's kind of a jerk, who will benefit from debt relief. We will continue fighting for student borrowers. And again, all the Republicans had to do is just not do anything on this. Just literally not do anything. And this would have run its course. But now they're going to own it. And they'll own it. And I don't even know what's going to happen. Maybe they have the ability to continue to extend it again. According to the Secretary of Education. So the more you look into this deal, the more it turns it, looks like it's just a total disaster. And we'll see what the Republicans do. They're talking a big game out there in Congress on the steps of the Capitol. But will they adhere to it? Are they going to hold the line? Or will the debt continue to spiral out of control and send more authority to Jerome Powell to make the money printer go? I think we know where it's going. All right, my friends. So that's the debt. Now, let's turn our attention over to what's going on MSNBC. Here's what they say. MSNBC really, really wants Donald Trump to be prosecuted, so much so that they're saying prayers on their nightly broadcasts, I think is what's going on. We're going to take a look at what MSNBC and a contributor had to say. One man says he even goes to the gym so he can live longer, just so he can see Trump prosecuted. That's the level of TDS that we are seeing now on the cable networks. Trump also wants names of the people who are investigating him over at the FBI. That's according to a source from the Rolling Stone. Trump's lawyers are saying that apparently he waived them out of his office, which the government is going to use to prove Trump's intentionality. There's new evidence that they say that the Manhattan prosecutor's office has a recording of Donald Trump from the Files case, the business records felonies that he got charged with. And a question came in from Joe Biden about whether they would pardon Trump. So we're going to update ourselves on exactly what's going on various different Trump prosecutions. But first, this is how excited they are. Look at all these people just smiling. Their favorite segments of the day. This is from the Mehdi Hasan show. They're talking about this story that says the DOJ has evidence that Trump showed docs to others in the classified documents case. And they want this case to move forward. And they're getting closer and closer to the finish line. And they're waiting any day now, salivating for the news of an indictment. Here's how they talk to each other.
Dean, if this is just a small fraction of the evidence that Jack Smith has collected thus far, the question then becomes, what's he waiting for?
You know, maybe I go to the gym a lot and eat well just so I can stay alive long enough for charges to come against Donald Trump from DOJ. I don't know. And I'm in good shape. You know, I could live for years to come.
That's weird.
I don't know. Maybe we all wait for this. Like, This is an inshallah prosecution. Exactly. Inshallah for us Muslims means God willing, or often never. It's going to take a sign from God to get DOJ to charge Donald Trump. A burning bush, the voice of God, locusts, brimstone, cats and dogs living together. No one knows, but it's been 2 years and almost 6 months since January 6th. This is outrageous.
What? Is that what they do on MSNBC? What is going on over there? This guy gets up and he eats right. He probably gets his Field of Greens or his analog. I don't know what they, this is a product for real Americans, but I don't know what they drink. But the point is, exercise, fitness, longevity, full routines, so that he can just be alive for the most important moment of any TDSer's life, a Trump indictment, Trump prosecution for January 6th. Don't know if he's got a wife or kids or anything else to live for other than Trump being prosecuted. But inshallah, also, God willing, from these two. So it's a very interesting conversation that's happening. And I don't know that Mehdi, to be fair to Mehdi, was actually saying inshallah in reference to Trump being prosecuted. To be perfectly fair to him, I think he was saying it about this other guy living long. And then the other guy living long turned around and said, yes, exactly. Inshallah. Prosecute Trump, man. That's what I'm talking about. Mehdi says over to him, yeah, God willing, you'll live a long time. And then he says, God willing, Trump gets prosecuted this is really what I only care about. Here's this one more time.
Dean, if this is just a small fraction of the evidence that Jack Smith has collected thus far, the question then becomes, what's he waiting for?
Mehdi, I go to the gym a lot and eat well just so I can stay alive long enough for charges that come against Donald Trump from DOJ. I don't know, and I'm in good shape. I could live for years to come. I don't know, Mehdi. We all
Inshallah.
wait for this. This is an inshallah prosecution. Exactly. Inshallah for us Muslims means God willing, or often never. It's going to take a sign from God to get DOJ to charge Donald Trump. A burning bush, the voice of God, locusts, brimstone, cats and dogs living together. No one knows, but it's been 2 years and almost 6 months since January 6th. This is outrageous.
Please prosecute him. I can't take it. I'm going to lose it, man. They're all losing their minds. They absolutely need to have him prosecuted. And it may be coming. It may be coming very soon, in fact. Donald Trump's lawyer apparently was waived off. Now, this came over from The Guardian. Here's what they tell us. They say, Evan Corcoran said that he was steered away from Trump's office, where the FBI later found most of its sensitive materials. This came out from Evan Corcoran, which was Trump's lawyer, and Trump's lawyer had his attorney-client privilege waived. Remember, there were different courts that said Trump was originally protected by attorney-client privilege and things like executive privilege, things that normal Americans have in a normal country. But they have eviscerated all of those because political enemies are now a disfavored class in America. Donald Trump fits into that, along with many others like the J6ers and the MAGA extremists and so on, all in this disfavored defendant class that is now emerging in this country. And Evan Corcoran's privileges get eviscerated. They evaporate. Donald Trump's lawyer, who was originally his lawyer, tasked with searching for the classified documents around Mar-a-Lago, after they were issued a subpoena, told associates that he was waived off from searching the former president's office, where the FBI later found the more sensitive documents. They're going to use this to show intentionality, to say that Trump made a mental statement by waving them away. There's nothing in here saying you don't have authority to come in here. This lawyer, named Evan, recounted that several Trump aides had told him to search the storage room because that's where all the materials that had been brought from the White House ended up being deposited. Corcoran found 38 classified documents in the room. He then asked whether he should search anywhere else, like Trump's office, but he was steered away. He told associates. Corcoran never searched the office and told prosecutors the 38 papers were the extent of the material at Mar-a-Lago. And remember that Donald Trump and his team, they were getting really charged because they said they signed this document that said, we've done a search And we've found what we found. This is it. There's nothing else. Then the FBI came back down there. They were investigating him aggressively. They said, no, you still have additional documents. That's what necessitated the search warrant, which led to the raid. The assertion that there were no classified documents elsewhere at the property proved to be wrong. FBI got 101 classified documents in the following month. Corcoran, in his previously unreported account, as relayed to The Guardian by two people familiar with the matter, more leaks out of this investigation than anything. It's weird. We get so many leaks out of this investigation, but none out of the Hunty investigations. FBI's not sending anything out to the Washington Post. DOJ's not sending anything to The Guardian or the New York Times. But it suggests that Trump materially misled others as Jack Smith continues his investigation. It's not clear who waved off Corcoran, whether it was Trump himself or Trump employees who advised him to look elsewhere. Corcoran didn't respond to a request for comment. Trump's spokesman came out and said, this is completely false and rooted in pure fantasy. The real story is the illegal weaponization of the Justice Department and the witch hunts. Criminal investigation appears to be nearing its end, so those MSNBCers are going to be thrilled about that. Has recently focused on why the subpoena was not complied with. In particular, prosecutors have examined why Trump ordered his valet, somebody named Walt, to move certain boxes out of the storage room before and after the subpoena was issued. The movement of the boxes has taken on added significance. Prosecutors saw surveillance tapes that boxes were returned on June 2nd, the day before the Justice Department traveled down there to visit. Not clear when Corcoran was waved off. Could be notable if it came before the boxes were brought back. Could raise questions. Why are you moving the boxes around? Corcoran also wrote down a note about how he told Trump he could not retain any classified documents when Trump was asked what he was allowed to keep. So he wrote it down. He said, he wrote down in his client notes, the president asked me, can I do this? I told him the following. As well as when he took breaks during the search, and he memorialized the whole thing. Now, prosecutors got access to this. He had attorney-client privilege, but they waived all of that. Corcoran appears to have been told that the prevailing belief among Trump aides and employees at the time was that any classified documents would be in the storage room. The rest would have been brought from the White House. Before he could start his search, Trump's lawyer ended up telling the valet about the subpoena, where he was searching. He needed him to unlock things. He got access. Corcoran realizes he needed a deadline extension. Since he was the only person working on this, he got a new deadline of June. As the new subpoena deadline approached, Corcoran asked around, should I look in other areas? He was told, no, the storage room should be sufficient. Don't look anywhere else. Corcoran says he completed his search of the storage room and told the DOJ on June 2nd to come and collect the documents. Then he provided a search letter, and we read this letter from Christina Bobb. She said, we did a diligent search of the properties. We haven't found anything. We're done. The subpoena had been issued to Trump's office. They treated it as an administrative subpoena. Advice turned out to be wrong. Months later, a warrant was issued, and Trump's house was raided. So they are gearing up there. They've breached attorney-client privilege, and the investigation is continuing to heat up. That is just the investigation from the special counsel. Shifting over to New York, there's new evidence in this one because this one also leaks. In Manhattan, apparently they have a witness. There was a court filing that came out. The DA's office informed Trump's attorneys of some of the evidence. They made a disclosure statement. The filing doesn't identify any witnesses, but the form said they've already disclosed this stuff. It's a new recording. We don't know when or where it was made. they've reached out for conversations with Trump's team. A key witness in the case, Michael Cohen, previously released secret taped audio recordings. Unclear if that is the same one they have. Michael Cohen released one about Stormy Daniels payments in 2016. Dating, the filing came in from on a Tuesday, the same date Trump made his virtual court appearance. Trump was scolded and reprimanded there in court, saying, "You can't talk badly about the case, understand my terms or else." Trump has denied having the affairs. So we'll see what that recording looks like and what those disclosure statements look like shortly. But Trump apparently also is doing a little investigating of his own. The Rolling Stone dug this story out. They say that Team Trump is trying to unmask the feds who are investigating him. Now, this was written by two people, Asawin and Adam. And they say that the president wants to immediately purge the Justice Department of the ranks of the officials who've led the probes into him. Let's see where this evidence is coming from. They say in the recent months, the former President Trump has asked close advisors, including at least one of his personal attorneys, if, quote, we know all the names of the senior feds investigating him. That's according to two sources, they say, with direct knowledge of the matter. Trump has then privately discussed that should he return to the White House, it's imperative that his new DOJ, quote, quickly and immediately purge the FBI and the DOJ's ranks of these officials and agents. Yes, agreed. Who've led Trump-related criminal investigations. The ex-president has, of course, dubbed all such probes illegitimate witch hunts. He's now campaigning for the White House on a platform of retribution and cleaning house. Yeah, they are. It is a witch hunt. Separately, the twice impeached former president, they say, that's nice, has been saying for many, was he convicted in either one of these? Why didn't you say twice acquitted, jerks? He wants FBI Director Wray out of the Bureau, according to people close to Trump. Trump appointed him in 2017. But now Trump distrusts Wray because they're all cut from the same cloth. Would be nice to see a nice cleaning house from Donald. But another interesting clip came out from Peter Doocy. He asked Joe Biden about a pardon for Trump. This is a new thing that we'll hear conversations about. As they indict Trump, will Joe Biden pardon him? The answer to that is obviously not. They want to see him rot away in prison if they could.
I heard the question. Don't get your suit dirty, man. All right.
Did you see that Ron DeSantis said that if he became president, he would pardon Trump? Where are you on the idea of presidents pardoning Trump?
Yep, it was, thank you.
No answer on that one. Interesting question. Would you pardon Trump? Is anybody going to pardon Trump? And is Trump going to need a pardon? Maybe the prosecution will extend into the election, past the election, and into his new administration, and he can pardon himself. So we'll see. Now, my friends, we've got one final segment here today, and this was breaking as the show was starting. And I wanted to take a quick look to see if there's anything really new on it. Doesn't look like it. So I think we can just jump right into it with the FBI. The FBI refusing to provide Congress with the document that they demanded. They issued a subpoena. They said, if you don't give us the document, we're going to hold you in contempt. They gave him a deadline. The deadline came and passed. And guess what? The FBI, no documents to Congress because they're the FBI. Who does Congress think they are? Don't they know who really runs this country? So we know that the FBI is not going to be complying. There was a very important FD 1023 form that needed to go to Congress. A whistleblower identified this document as implicating Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. And Congress, James Comer and the Oversight Committee wanted to get their hands on it. But guess what? After many letters, after an official subpoena, and after multiple demands and meetings with the FBI told James Comer it will not provide the subpoenaed unclassified documents to him. Not going to get it. The House will proceed to hold the FBI director in contempt of Congress for refusing to hand over an informant file that links Joe Biden to a $5 million bribery scheme. Here is the statement from James Comer. He says the Oversight Committee will now take steps to hold FBI Director Wray in contempt of Congress. Says House Committee on Oversight and Accountability Chairman James Comer issued the following statement on the FBI's refusal to comply with a congressional subpoena for unclassified records. These aren't classified documents, alleging a criminal scheme involving then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national. Comer says, today, the FBI informed the committee that it will not provide the unclassified documents subpoenaed by the committee. The FBI's decision, says Comer, to stiff-arm Congress and hide this information from the American people is obstructionist and unacceptable. While I have a call scheduled with FBI Director Wray tomorrow to discuss his response further, for what? The committee has been clear in its intent to protect congressional oversight authorities and will now be taking steps to hold the FBI director in contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with a lawful subpoena. Nice. Comer says Americans deserve the truth, and the Oversight Committee will continue to demand transparency from this nation's chief enforcement agency of the law. So they'll have a phone call tomorrow and say, hey, Chris, why aren't you working with us on this? He'll say, well, we're the FBI and we do what we want. And I'm saying, oh yeah, I forgot. So we'll see what happens next. Now, Kevin McCarthy has explained that he may be behind this effort, and that will be very nice because we'll need a full House unified to bring in the FBI's behaviors back into legality. Here is what McCarthy said.
Comer subpoenaed the document that he's requested. We have jurisdiction over the FBI, which they seem to act like we do not. I personally called Director Wray and told him he needs to send that document. Today is the deadline. So let me not just tell you, let me tell Director Christopher Wray right here, right now. If he misses the deadline today, I am prepared to move contempt charges in Congress against him. We have jurisdiction over this. He can send us that document. We have the right to look at that, Republicans and Democrats alike in that committee. And if he does not follow through with the law, we will move contempt charges against Christopher Wray and the FBI.
You know what he says,
they are
Mr.
not
Speaker?
above the law.
Whoa! Wow. So that's an interesting little statement there from Kev. Man, he's really getting after that now. I'm going to go after you guys. I don't know what got into him. He probably is a little embarrassed after getting backhanded during the budget negotiations. So he went back to his coach and he's like, you can do this. Like, get out there. Go out there and get Christopher Wray. You can do it. Kev, get out there. So they put him back in and he's, FBI, Wray. I called him. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They go in front of the Senate too. Christopher Wray's like, I got a plane to catch, Chuck Grassley. What? What do you want, Ron Johnson? No, I can't answer that. How many times do I have to tell you sources and methods? Gosh, you idiots. I'll just get a flashcard for you. Sources and methods. Sources and methods. Leave me alone. We run this place. So Kev comes out, and he's going to be real tough. Now, I actually do hope they move forward with this, because this is insane, and he's even laughing about it. He's like, well, we actually do have jurisdiction over this, and, he's just also laughing at me, too. And we're all sitting here going, yes, we know. Yes, they're laughing at you. We know that they're laughing at you. You don't know that they're laughing at you, but we do, because he's got a plane to catch.
Comer subpoenaed the document that he's requested. We have jurisdiction over the FBI, which they seem to act like we do not. I personally called Director Wray and told him he needs to send that document. Today is the deadline. So let me not just tell you, let me tell Director Christopher Wray right here, right now.
Yeah.
If he misses the deadline
You
today,
listening, Chris?
I am prepared to move contempt charges in Congress against him.
Chris listened this whole time, and he's like, we're not doing anything, no. Somebody sends him a text. Did you see what Kev said? He said, I don't care.
We have jurisdiction over this. He can send us that document. We have the right to look at that. Republicans and Democrats alike in that committee. And if he does not follow through with the law, we will move contempt charges against Christopher Wray and the FBI.
You know what he says,
they are
Mr.
not
Speaker?
above the law.
All right, they're not above the law. We'll see. I mean, certainly seems like they are. They can just create fake investigations, fake prosecutions, and kind of do whatever they want. Nobody holds them accountable at all. Maybe this Congress will. We'll see. Now, what's interesting is while the FBI is ignoring Congress, they're focused on more important things like warning us about terrorist threats in America. And just so that we're all properly aware and apprised of some very terrorist-related activity that might be coming our way, let's take a look at this National Terrorism Advisory Bulletin, shall we? This one was published on May 24th. Bulletin is good until November. And just so you're aware of this, didn't know if you knew this, but it's true. The United States is in a heightened threat environment. Wow. They're kidding. Still. Says lone offenders and small groups motivated by a range of beliefs. Wonder what these are going to be. Oh, here we go. And personal grievances pose a persistent and lethal threat to the homeland. Oof, sounds scary. Now, both domestic violent extremists we've all heard about. We have, I think, the Catholic motivated extremist and the soccer mom motivated extremist and the parent-teacher association motivated extremist and the genital leave alones insurrectionists. You know, there's all sorts of different contingency groups now. And those associated with foreign terrorist groups continue to attempt to motivate supporters to conduct attacks on the homeland, including through violent extremist messaging and online calls for violence. Now, if you've followed along on this channel for any length of time, you know that violent extremist messaging is basically anything that they want it to be. It doesn't even matter. You can be in a group and say, I believe in a free and strong America. And they go, what do you mean free and strong America? The hell are you talking about? Are you a patriot? Do you say patriotic things? Like God bless America? Oh my God. Do you go to church? Oh my gosh. You might be a terrorist. And that's like not jokey. There's other bulletins. Let's see what this bulletin says. It might give us some examples. I don't even know. In the coming months, says the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, factors that could mobilize individuals to commit violence, oh, here we go, include their perceptions of the 2024 election cycle. So anybody who has perceptions about the election cycle, you could be an extremist DVE. Yeah. And also, if you have include their perceptions of legislative or judicial decisions pertaining to social political issues. Yeah. Factors that could mobilize individuals to commit violence. So if you're involved in any of these things, which I guess is what we do here. I mean, we talk about 2024. We talk about legislation all the time. We talk about judicial decisions like every day. It's like the whole channel. And anything pertaining to socio-political issues, which is a lot of what we do here. Now, I don't know what specific factors might of these conversations might mobilize anybody to violence. We are strongly anti-violence here, but we definitely want to talk about these things because we're entitled to as Americans. We have the First Amendment, and we're allowed to talk about the 2024 election cycle. We're allowed to talk about legislative and judicial opinions involving socio-political issues. All right. And they say that all of this stuff is likely targets of potential violence might be U.S. critical infrastructure, faith-based institutions, and also, who's going to be probably the biggest victim here, as they always are, is any events associated with LGBTQIA plus and so on. Any events associated with that group. With the LGBTA plus Q plus community, schools, racial and ethnic minorities, government facilities, including law enforcement. All right. You can see what's going on here. Now, they give us some examples of this, some additional information. A now deceased individual killed 8 people in a mall in Allen, Texas. Another deceased individual killed 6 people. You remember that one. Christian elementary school in Nashville. Did we ever get the manifesto on that one? I don't think so. Law enforcement continues to investigate the motive behind the attack and has indicated the individual studied other mass attackers. A religious motivated violent extremist, white supremacist, was arrested trying to burn down a church. 2 other religious motivated extremists, white racists, were involved in a series of attacks on electricity. Georgia also has some anarchists and animals' rights violent extremists. Anti-law enforcement sentiment as well. And foreign terrorists are working hard on all of this. And how are we doing this? Well, we're sharing actionable information, working with our federal partners. We are reaching out with our faith-based partners, working with intelligence, and so on. And so all of this you can see is here's what to do. Report anything. If you see something, say something. Report it, call 911, and give us everything you've got. Now, there was some interesting reaction to this. I found a fun tweet that came over from this fellow, Wesley Yang. He said the following. He said, they issue an advisory about this, but what are they citing as evidence of the threats? He says, well, they write this. He says they cited celebration of a mass attack by a trans-identified female of evidence of threats against LGBTQ+. Here's what they said in a statement over from ABC News. They say threats of violence against the LGBTQ+ community are on the rise and intensifying. That's according to this document. They said these issues include actions linked to drag-themed events and gender-affirming care and LGBTQIA+ curricula in the schools. And they said, what's causing all of this new attacks on this community? And the DHS said that the issues inspiring the threats and the calls to violence could lead to a rise of other attacks. But where does it come from? They say, they cite social media chatter celebrating the recent shooting at Nashville. Celebrating the recent shooting at Nashville, which was, I thought that was supposed to be a trans person, no? High-profile attacks against schools and faith-based institutions have historically served as an inspiration to conduct copycat attacks. Others are targeting the LGBTQ+ community as well. So they're using evidence of one attack, which was allegedly, until we learn more about what this is all about, was done by a trans attacker. They're still investigating the causes officially, according to the FBI. I mean, they can't figure it out, according to this report. Oh gosh, what is it? What is the basis for this? Still investigating the motive. Yeah, we don't really know what it is. Weird. But the chatter around that, the chatter that was celebrating that, and we know that there was some celebration of that, even from the one woman in Katie Hobbs's administration who has since resigned. She shared the picture. If you attack the trans community, this is what we do. And she had the woman with the two boom booms pointing. And she was asked to resign. She's no longer in the administration. So it's just curious how they use something like that to say that community is now being targeted because of that attack. You know, it's very circular. It's very strange. It doesn't make any logical sense. But then again, we are talking about the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. Now, while they are working on all of that, the Department of Justice is trying to go and claw back the money from the J6ers. They made money in donations to support their legal defenses and to help them reintegrate back into society after being framed for being insurrectionists. And the DOJ doesn't like that. They want that money back. Less than 2 months after pleading guilty, Daniel Goodwin went on Tucker and raised money. $25,000 he raised. And now the Justice Department wants him to give that up. AP got some court records, shows that prosecutors in the more than 1,000 criminal cases are asking judges to impose fines on top of prison sentences to offset the donations that the supporters got from the Capitol rioters. These people are so disgusting. They want to take everything. So they just look somebody up. They say, how much money did you raise for your defense? Oh, 25 grand? Who'd that come from? A bunch of other patriots around the country going into your give, send, go? Yeah? Cool. Well, we're just going to say, Judge, can you please give him a $26,000 fine? And the DC judges just say, yeah, sure. And they just have to now drain their funds to go right into the Treasury because these people are disgusting. Dozens of defendants have set up online fundraising appeals for help with legal fees. And prosecutors acknowledge there's nothing wrong with asking for attorney's expenses, but the Justice Department has questioned where the money really is going. Some of those had government-funded legal representation, so it's not your money. Give, Send, Go has become a haven, they say, for January 6 defendants, barred from using GoFundMe, a crap website. The rioters often proclaim their innocence and portray themselves as victims of government oppression, which is true in many of their cases, even as they cut deals to plead guilty. Well, you know why they do that is so they don't go to trial and spend the rest of their lives in the gulags with insane sentences by prosecutors demanding all of their blood. Fundraising success suggests that many people in America still view them as patriots. The former president himself fueled the idea. Virginia man is scheduled to be sentenced, raised more than $16,000 online. His name is Marcus Malley. Prosecutors have turned around and said, you know, Judge, we think a $16,000 fee is fine. He had a public defender. He doesn't owe any legal fees. Therefore, $16,000. Says he shouldn't be able to use that money for what he wants. So the strategy here is to not do your fundraising until after you're sentenced, right? Obviously. So hold off on those. Get sentenced first. And maybe do your fundraising after time. This is not legal advice. I'm just saying as a general rule, obviously. Before sentencing, they're asking for the penalty, so they're just going to the GoFundMes. So far this year, prosecutors have sought more than $390,000 in fines, 21 riot defendants. $450 all the way up to $71,000. These people have, very, very little humanity left in them, so they want everything. They'll take the fillings out of your teeth. Judges have imposed at least $124,000 in fines against 33 riot defendants this year. Collectively, more than $240,000. Yeah, now this would be curious. Damage in the total amount was $2.8 million. I wonder how much they're going to fleece out of everybody. More rioters facing the most serious charges are now sentenced earlier this year. $25,000 fine. He raised over $120,000 calling himself America's political prisoner. Many of them are. So that's what our federal government is doing, now trying to rob people of their hard-earned funds being donated by American patriots who just care about what our government is doing here. The DOJ just says, we're going to take that too, and we're going to take that, and we're going to take that. Because that's just what they do. And that, my friends, is it for us on the day today. We covered some good ground. We talked about contempt. Christopher Wray is going to be held in it. We'll see what Congress does about it and what tough guy Kev McCarthy does about any of it. Over on MSNBC, they're praying for Trump to be prosecuted, and we did a nice little roundup of some of what is happening out there. Trump wants to know who's investigating him. Sounds like the special counsel is getting much, much closer to making a decision. And of course, we will continue to cover that one. And major updates on the debt deal. We'll see if anything comes of it. Of course, Republicans are very unhappy about it. I think it's just a rotten deal. I don't know why we just keep doing it. And we'll see. It's going to be, I think, a tense couple days. A lot of these Republicans have really dug in with these hard statements. And so over the next few days, we'll see if they flip or what happens. But the country is going to watch, I'm sure, with attention. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this. And of course, we have our amazing donos to thank, our amazing super chats, and everybody who helps to support the show and the work that we do. And so let's get those puppies queued up in the house, and let's see what we've got today. First one here is from Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. Debbie is here. Says 1/2 from Congress.gov. Says the bill suspends the debt limit through 1/1/25, increases the debt limit on 1/2/25, and then says to accommodate obligations issued during the suspension period. To accommodate the obligations issued during the wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so it's just buy now, pay later, right? Is all it is. It's buy now, pay later. Because these people are gross. Yeah, good to see you. Thank you for both of those, Debbie. Appreciate it. Glad that you're here. And thanks for being a member too. Voice of the People says, behind a bit on the stream, but remember when I said we were just here 5 months ago with the debt ceiling? Why raise it when we're going to hit it in another 5 months? I think I do remember that, Voice of the People. It does feel like it's the same game over and over and over and over again. And we appreciate your chat here today, my friend. Thank you for sending that in. Another one from Voice says, LMFAO, when 1.75 speeds you sound like Ben Shapiro. It's a nice compliment. You know, Ben Shapiro talks very fast with a lot of intelligence. He has a lot of knowledge. And he speaks it quickly. So that's a nice compliment. Voice of the People. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. 1.75 speed's pretty fast. I typically don't go outside of 1.5, you know. Then it starts to get a little chipmunky. But thanks, Voice. A Bad Poet says, I would pay to know how many voting F investigations versus J6 there are, and which of those has more truth a crime has been committed. Well, I mean, oh, I see what you're saying. Like, how many of the DOJ prosecutors are working on voter fraud cases in general? I can't even imagine it's even close. Not even close in the same wheelhouse. But it's a good point. They're really, they're not even focused on other crimes, I don't think. They're focused on the J6 MAGA. Get YouTube to stop the ads during live stream, from Curtis Bartle. Well, the way for you to do that is, unfortunately for you, is to become a YouTube member, or no, is to become a YouTube premium supporter. So that's the best way to do it. The other way to do it is to join us on Locals, and you don't get ads on that, or to watch on Twitter, which I think has less ads, or to watch on Rumble, which has less ads. But if you join YouTube Premium, you won't get the ads. Otherwise, YouTube has mid-roll ads in the live streams now, just like Twitch and some others do. But this one is from Scott McClacken. Says, vote no on this deal to export Graham to Russia. We could put that. Well, they have a warrant for him. Don't we want to honor arrest warrants? Aren't we a country that honors arrest warrants? Man, I was thinking about that, though, Scott. Ukraine really spliced him out of context, although it was in context, but they did splice it to make it look worse. It's not good. Uncle Shane says you can also watch the show on the Brave browser, or I think you can get AdBlock Plus, right? You could also do that. There's also browsers that will block the ads, or AdBlock Plus is another solution to it. But I personally use YouTube Premium because I don't like ads either. And normally if you watch us on locals, although we're not streaming to locals today because we ran out of live streams, that's how much activity we do over there. You don't get the ads on locals. So you can become a member and then you won't get the ads as well. Hey, John Allen says, someone's got to get the bribe locals for extra time fund going. Thank you, John. I know we do need more locals time. We ran out of locals time because we did too many streams. We're just streaming. It's just streaming madness over there. So it resets on June 1st. So it'll all reset, not tomorrow, but the day after. Good to see you, John. Thanks for the fund. Here, Voice says, all of these things they point out came from the left, except the Allen, Texas one, which has never identified political leanings. Oh, yeah, talking about the FBI's list here. Terrorists, condemn foreign policy. Look, it's always the same crap. It's a perpetual state of fear. Everybody's going to attack us. They need more money. They need more political leverage to get this stuff done. And we're tired of hearing about it all. All right. Thank you, Voice. Steel Stargazer says, who is the person who planted the pipe boom booms on 1/5/21? Good question. We don't know. FBI apparently has some knowledge about this. I think they have a higher footage video recording of it, personally. They released one that's like 1 frame per second. It's like, dup, dup, and then he's off the screen. They got a couple angles of it. And then evidently they've also followed him onto the subway in DC, right in that area. You can just hop, right down into the subway, into the metro, and go someplace. Apparently they followed him to his car, got into a car. Still don't know who it is, though. Isn't that curious? And so we got Vanticus in the house reminding us to go over to Twitter. Thank you for the reminder, V. And say hello to our friends over on Rumble. Yeah, Crit says it was Ray Epps over there. Real Rob says it was Epps. It was Fed Epps, says Dance Master. Fake pipe bombs. Indoctrination says, yeah, they're not even looking anyways over there. So, not a surprise. We'll see. I think that might have been plan B. If they couldn't get people to go into the Capitol, then maybe they would have set something off. And who knows what it would have looked like. Hey, over on Twitter, who's here? Danny McWilliams says, I'm blue collar. You go to college, pay your own effing bills. I think that's a good standard. Yeah, if you want something, you got to pay for it. I think that's true. I'm just saying that the Democrats should have owned their continual extensions. Now the Republicans are going to take it over because they're not that bright. Deplorable Fred is saying here, terrorist Johnny, and is saying inshallah as well. Good to see you, Deplorable Fred. And we got Vanticus Prime in the house. He said, the reality is we're in a perpetual constitutional crisis. The Constitution gets vastly ignored at all levels of government. It's all about power, the general in the Republic. A new slogan of America might as well be Vae Victis. Oh, gosh. V's going to make us look up some Latin here. I don't know what the heck that is. Should I know that one? It says, Vae Victis is woe to the vanquished. Woo, that's fancy. All right, so we all have a mission now. We all have to use this phrase this week in a casual conversation with a friend. And just say that. Just say it means that those defeated in battle are entirely at the mercy of their conquerors and should not expect or request leniency. Yeah. So when your friend's complaining about something and they've been, oh gosh, this thing happened to me, life's so hard. Just say, yeah, I know. It's true. Vae Victis, right? Vae Victis, man. And then they'll be like, whoa, that dude is super smart. And they'll look it up and It means that those defeated in battle are at the mercy of their conquerors and don't request leniency. And make some good decisions on the back of that. Yeah. Don't expect leniency. Good comment, V. Some heavy stuff, man. Whew. All right. Now, let's see what else we have here. We're going to go back over to Twitter. And love that. Here, we got this one from Phil Reno. Says, your comment about every meal costing $25 or whatever really hit home. Can't even grab a value meal anymore. It's true. It's true, man. Everywhere you go. I was out, I had like a turkey sandwich and a drink. $25. I was like, what is this? All right, that's a lot. It is a good sandwich, but you know, my goodness, that happened fast. Has there been a response from the court to move Trump's New York case to the federal court? Good question. And I don't think so, but I should be able to pull that up relatively quickly. And every time I say that, I can never do it. But let's see what we've got here. Yeah, this is the Trump removal case. Actually, there was a new filing today. So this is the Trump removal case. Oh, we might talk about this tomorrow. Yeah, we got some new stuff got filed today. Look at this. Lot of new filings today. Lot of stuff. We got a notice of appearance. We'll probably hit this tomorrow. We've got a notice of appearance from the state of New York, meaning the New York Manhattan prosecutors bringing in his prosecutors. Motion to seal. They want to seal the case, little punks. Memorandum of law to seal. Motion to remand. So the New York state is saying, we don't want it to go to federal court. We want it to come back down to our level. They submitted all of these different exhibits here. Declaration of Matthew Colangelo in support of the motion to seal. They want everything done in secret because they're just little censors at heart. And then there was another motion to remand. So not much from Trump, it looks like. Trump's team, I think, will respond to all of that. Notice of appearances here. We read through the original filing previously, which was way down here at the bottom. Notice of removal, right? We read through all of that in a prior video here. So if you want to follow along, check that video out. But a lot of new stuff just dropped today. So actually, thank you for asking about that. I know what we'll take a look at tomorrow. So that'll be fun. We'll get it organized. Yeah, we'll get it organized and we'll go through it. Not all of it's going to be worthy of going through, but good question. We have this one from Phil Reno. Says, please do not feed the rhinos. Don't feed the rhinos. They just get fatter and they never go home. Dirty Coin says to continue to raise the debt ceiling instead of first cutting back on all of the recent overspending is crazy. America is being fleeced by the Democrats. No doubt about that. Okay, and so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We had two other very nice chats come in. Who do we have here? It says, hey, Bobby, why can't Congress use the Capitol Police to detain those that are in contempt of Congress? If it can, use the old guard room, but if currently inadequate, build a new one. That's a really great question, actually. This is going to cause a whole bunch of things to happen. And it's going to be fun to follow along because the executive branch is going to be declaring that there is a separation of power, that they don't need to be connected, and that they're not subject to Congress's oversight in this way. They're going to say, no, it's our investigation. You can't tell us what to do with our investigation. You can oversee us, but that doesn't also apply to digging into one particular investigation. So we're going to be in court a lot on this case, and it's going to be fun to go through. But again, the Justice Department resides in the executive branch. So we'll see. There's going to be a lot more to go through. But I appreciate you being here. Thank you for the super chat. Steel Stargazer says, I also want to know why those Capitol Police ended themselves. Any research on that? Not other than what's been publicly released. You know, there were a handful of them. I think I read about some of that in, was it Stephen Sun's book? I can't remember where I saw it. But no, I don't know any additional research or what any other justifications were. You know, was it related to January 6th at all? Was it not? Was it because of something that they experienced that day? Was it something else? Who knows? Good questions. But those, my friends, are it for us on the day. And I want to thank everybody who sent in those very generous super chats. I appreciate you all supporting the work that we do. And we are going to go and we're going to do a short after party. Locals, we're going to start up a separate stream. And YouTube members, I'm also going to try to fire up a stream as well on YouTube for members only after party. We're going to try this today because I have to reconfigure some systems. We're going to try it and see what happens after we're done here. So members, stick around wherever you're at. If you're on YouTube, you're going to refresh the channel in about a minute or two. And then we'll have our members only stream. Locals, you're going to do the same thing. But that, my friends, is it for us here on the day. Of course, if you would like to join us for the after party, become a member at watchingthewatchers.locals.com or join us on Telegram where you can grab the same link. Before we leave for the day, don't forget to get your Field of Greens, get your real organic superfood, courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. And save 15% with code Robert when you check out. Remember, the vegetables, they want to be eaten. And if you'd like to build a mind map of your own and use it for content creation, use it for note taking, use it for mental organization, scrapbooking, whatever you do, check it out at spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap, where you can get and sign up for your free account, spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. Also, want to thank the mods and the meme smiths who keep this train on the track. Big shout outs to our friends Vienticus Prime, K Bean in the house, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, our friend Beyond Geo Stars, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek909, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and our meme smiths, Sleepy Dog Lee, and our friend Geegum Geegum. And we're going to add Nathan N810 to that as well. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We're going to do an after party here as soon as I can figure out the technology. So hang tight. If you're a member on YouTube or on Locals, hang tight. We'll be back in about 60 seconds or 2 minutes or so. And then we'll talk. But we are done here on the day. And so I want to thank you for joining us. We will come back tomorrow to do it all again. And I would love to see you here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video and for joining us tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here in the morning. Bye-bye.